Josh, did you hear? They're putting the Libertarian back on the podcast.
No.
Oh? You didn't see the calendar?
No.
You should talk to Kayla about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, who's on the show Tuesday?
You and Joe.
Yeah. Like he's back.
Yeah, no. You and Joe.
The Libertarian?
Yeah, Libertarian Joe.
He's not back.
You should just go in the studio and check it out.
You're messing with me.
Okay.
Okay. Nice joke, Kayla. Got me to go to the studio. No! No! Oh my gosh! No! No!
And here they are together again. Deputy Managing Editors Josh Manning and Joe Sedian joining me. I'm George, Upper Editor and Chief of the Western Journal, and you are watching WJ Live. Thank you for coming back and spending part of your afternoon with us. We have a number of important topics to cover today. We're going to start by talking just a little bit about our election and where we are and why we have not, at the Western Journal, made a call on this race yet. Now, a number of news organizations haven't yet made that call. I think most of them are waiting to see how Pennsylvania breaks.
I think they're waiting for the other one to do it.
Yeah,
so they can all.
they're all waiting for
like
I think they're all waiting for Fox News to do it, so
Yeah.
they can be like, Fox. We are not going to we're not going to be in that group for a little while. We're not going to make that call, and here's why. We're going to wait until states certify their results. And the reason for that is simply because in 2020, we wouldn't do this every year. We didn't do it in 2016. In fact, we called the race in 2016 hours before any other network could get over their shock at the anointed messiah, Hillary Clinton, not winning. So we had that one actually called early. This year is a little different. There are so many court challenges, so many recounts that we're expecting to see happen. Some have been announced, at least theoretically, that we just feel like it would be irresponsible at this point without letting the courts have their say, without letting process go through to completion. And so a few things, I wrote an editorial that we published earlier today on this, a few things I wanted to share from that. First, just a reminder, calling a race really isn't anything beyond making a prediction. It's not official. It doesn't mean anything beyond this is what we think is going to happen. Us calling North Carolina, Georgia, or the presidential race, whatever, is no more meaningful than me calling the winner of the Monday night football game. It'll be New England, by the way. But that's not official. It doesn't matter till the game's played. But it'll be New England. Yeah, you know who they're playing. The Jets.
Good Lord, do we have to do this?
Anyway, it'll be New England. So, calling a race doesn't really matter much. Secondly, we're not in any hurry. There is no constitutional crisis because nobody's calling the election on Election Day or even here 3 days later at the end of the longest week of the longest year of my life. There's no rush. The members of the Electoral College don't vote until December 14th. That's like 5 weeks away. And then Congress doesn't meet to count those votes until January 6th, which is another 3+ weeks. So we have lots and lots of time. So we're not in a hurry. Third, truth matters. And we want to speak to you truth as best we're able to understand it and best we're able to communicate it. The fact is, calls aren't truth. They are a best estimate. I should take best out of that. They're an estimate in most cases, sometimes the best estimate, of what truth will look like at some point in the future. But they're not truth. They don't affect the election. Certified state results affect the election. That's truth. That's what we're going to base our call on, actual truth. Fourth, I want to state that this is not an attempt to delegitimize the election results, although I am quite certain we are going to be accused of doing just that. It's just the opposite. Look, anybody who tells you that the call made of a state or a race or whatever by the AP or CNN or the New York Times or Fox News or anyone else, if they say that's legitimate, as opposed to the certified state election results, that's delegitimizing the election results, okay? It's the state certified results that matter. Now, most times, most years, most states, even this year, we can look and be pretty confident we know what's going to happen. We're pretty sure what's going to happen. This year's a little different. That's all we're saying here. Fifth, we started our election night coverage with this point, and I'm going to make it again, and it's probably not the last time I'm going to make it. Jesus Christ is still on his throne, no matter who wins the White House, no matter who controls the Senate or the House or the state legislatures or the governorships. All truth sort of derives from that central one, that God loves us, that God is in control and aware of what's going on. We try to see everything that we do come out of that central truth, revolve around that central truth. And nothing can change that truth. No election, no nothing can change that truth. And so compared to that truth, all these other truths about Nevada and Arizona and Sharpies and Florida and all the statements that are made by Democratic and Republican officials are the next best thing to meaningless compared to the sure and certain knowledge that we serve a God who reigns. So for all of those reasons, the Western Journal is withholding making any sort of call on this race. We will make one, and when we're sure and certain of where things are. That's not today. And we would be doing you a disservice, we believe, by pretending that's the case. So, having said that, I will also say that looking at the map, you see it up there now, the pathway for Donald Trump's victory does seem narrower each day since election night. It now leads through Georgia and Pennsylvania and Arizona, all three of which have taken turns towards Biden in recent hours, the past 24 hours. That is not a done deal. The election is not over, but it does look that way right now. If I had to bet, and I don't, if I had to bet, that's the way I'd bet. But Donald Trump is not out of this by any stretch of the imagination, and his team right now is talking about having some very legitimate grounds for legal action in some of these races. I have not seen those grounds. Most of those court documents are not available to the public yet, so I cannot stand here and tell you that they're great grounds. They might be amazing. I have no idea. I haven't seen them. But on the assumption that that doesn't work, and what seems to be obvious to us that Biden is on his way to a very, very, very narrow electoral college victory in the 2020 election, what does that mean for us? We're going to talk about a couple of different aspects of that today, but I'm going to say two things that will impact you specifically, or can. What does it mean for us? It means you're going to have more trouble, likely, getting true news content from sources that you trust. Social media, I don't have to tell you this. Social media is no fan of conservatives. Mainstream media, no fan of conservatives. Donald Trump had brought visibility to that. And in a Joe Biden administration, there are going to be fewer and fewer people fighting for your right to get the news that you want. So, how can you do that? What can you do about that? How can you remedy that? I'm going to make two suggestions for you right now. One, subscribe to WJ Live at youtube.com/WJLive. We're really easy to find. We look at our statistics every day when we run. Oh, here we go. Yeah. When we run this show, we look at our statistics every day. And one thing we see consistently is how many people are watching us who aren't subscribed to us on YouTube. So we really want you to go to youtube.com/WJLive and click that subscribe button and then click on the bell so that you see, there you go.
Can I do the ding?
So yeah, go ahead, do the ding.
Ding.
Yeah, very nice. So that you see an update, a notification every time we go live and bring you a new episode. So you get all the news that you are looking for from a source that you trust. That's us. Second thing that you can do that will also help us. Subscribing on YouTube helps us and helps you. This one is the same. Go to westernjournal.com/join and subscribe to the Western Journal. The Western Journal is the publication that we say it powers Western Journal, powers WJ Live. It produces, in essence, WJ Live. Western Journal is the publication that all three of us work for. If you go to westernjournal.com/join, you will see a number of different options for subscriptions there. They will all create for you what will essentially be an ad-free experience or very close to it. Surprisingly, there are actually a few ads that we don't have complete control over, but we do over most of them. So the ones we control, vast majority of them, they go away. You get an ad-free experience. You also support quality journalism, again, from a source that you trust at westernjournal.com/join. So two things you can do. You can do both those things today. youtube.com/WJLive, click subscribe, and then westernjournal.com/join. Come and become a partner with us to help us bring you quality journalism. All right. Moving on from there, given that we are faced with the possibility, at least, perhaps even the probability of a Joe Biden victory, what's the word I want? An announcement.
Hard to say, isn't it?
It is. I don't even want to consider the possibility. But a Joe Biden victory speech. There then comes the question of the transition from President Donald J. Trump's administration to the Joe Biden administration. And it looks like some people believe that might be a difficult proposition, Joe.
So, Joe Biden's campaign put out a statement today, and it said, I'm going to read it for you right here. The United States government is perfectly capable of escorting trespassers out of the White House. So,
subtle.
No,
not untrue.
Subtle.
No, it's true. Let's be. Let's look at this in a fair way. Donald Trump is probably not going to give a nice concession speech saying I lost and Joe Biden won a free and fair election,
right?
And do all the normal transition things. And I wish he would if it does come to that, because that is what presidents should do. And I think it's good for the future. It's good for the country.
You don't know he's not going to do that, though.
He might not. He may not. It looks right now like he doesn't. He's not close to.
He certainly hasn't made any noises in that direction so far.
Right, but
you're right.
The left, I think, and the media is getting all riled up because they think, or they want to think.
They want us to think.
They want us to think that if Biden wins the presidency, that Donald Trump is going to stay in the White House and he's going to have the Secret Service around him, and maybe he's going to get the military involved, and he's going to call in, maybe the National Guard, and have this kind of apocalyptic scenario.
Which they've said since day one.
Where he's basically a military coup, which is what they would like us to think that he's going to do.
Well, that's what they want him to do. They would love it if he would
do.
They would love it.
Yeah, it would make great headlines.
Let's be very clear. Donald Trump is not going to do that. He's not going to do any of that. If he loses, as you said, in the probable scenario that Trump loses, he's going to probably very loudly say that it was not a fair election, and he's going to huff and he's going to puff, and he's going to walk out of the White House. And on Inauguration Day, Joe Biden is going to walk into the White House.
Right.
Donald Trump will then go on maybe he'll go on a book tour, maybe he'll go on Fox News, maybe he'll even make his own TV station or media conglomerate and talk about how the election was stolen from him. And to be fair, I don't think the election was stolen from him, but that is the extent of Donald Trump, of what he's going to do. He's going to make a lot of money, and he's going to huff and puff, and that's it. There's no violence. There's going to be no military. There's going to be no military coup. But the media thinks that the media wants us to think that, and they want to think that because it's exciting and it, you know, portrays Trump as Orange Man bad and this evil person who, you know, threatens the future of the republic when
Right.
it's a very silly scenario that they're putting forward. What do you guys think of that? Do you think that, one, I guess my first question, do you think Trump's going to concede if he loses?
I really think it depends on the manner of the loss. So there are going to be plenty of people who don't want him to concede.
Sure.
Right? There are plenty of people who will say, look, this was stolen from you. And even that word, stolen, I think there's stolen and there's stolen, right? There's
Right.
outright voter fraud, which would have to occur on a massive scale,
Massive.
right? To
Massive
turn the tide. There has certainly been voter fraud. There's no question. We've seen
There's every time.
incidences of voter
Yeah.
fraud, of course. Has it occurred on that massive scale? I haven't seen evidence of that. Not yet. Now, again, Trump has some legal challenges coming forth, so he may know some things that he hasn't released to the public yet. We'll see how that turns out. In the event of Trump believing that massive voter fraud has occurred, I don't see him conceding. I still see him leaving, but I don't see him giving that speech. I think I see him walking out of the office going, this is wrong. This was stolen from me. The other thing, too, to keep in mind, though, is even in the absence of massive voter fraud, it's really hard to argue that by a lesser definition of stolen, theft didn't happen here, right? The vast left-wing media was absolutely adamant in its protection of Joe Biden and its relentless attacks on Donald Trump for 4 years after they helped put him in office by giving him all kinds of free media coverage in 2015, 2016, right? They hated themselves for doing that. And so that was extremely one-sided. And there's plenty of evidence, plenty of objective evidence that shows that the media really slanted to one side, not the other. And so you could argue that in an actual free mainstream media environment, that Trump would have had a better chance, that maybe he would have won, or maybe not enough people would have been excited about Joe Biden or against Donald Trump or whatever. So, I think it is possible for Trump to, in a realistic way that I would not necessarily disagree with, yell that the election was stolen from him. That might mean one thing to one group of people and mean something else to me. But I could see I could see a way for him to say that, and I agree with it, and therefore refuse to concede on that basis. But what I don't see him doing is like shutting the Oval Office doors and barricading them with a table, and surrounding himself with Secret Service with pointing rifles out the windows.
I do. Sorry, I'll let you go ahead in a second, Josh. I do think that, when you say the media, was it stolen from him? I think that's a weird kind of phrase to use because the American people, I like to think for the most part, are smart and they know what they are voting for, right? The media lies. The mainstream media, lies and slants and is very liberal. But people knew what Trump stood for the most part, and people knew for the most part, I think, what Joe Biden stood for, and they went and made their choice. But you can also say, in 2008 and 2012, the media loved, Obama. Was the election stolen from McCain? Was it stolen from Romney? Was it stolen from Bob Dole in 1996 or H.W. Bush in 92? You could say that.
Yeah, you can make arguments on both those sides. I would say, though, Joe, that just prior to the election, there was a poll that came out about the Hunter Biden laptop story and all those emails, and over 50% of the American people believed that to be Russian disinformation.
Yes. When
The American intelligence community came out publicly and said, this is not Russian disinformation,
Right.
just flat out said it, it's not. And so you can talk about how informed the American electorate is, and maybe over time that information would have worked its way out into the American populace, but the mainstream media absolutely kept it from the American populace, and not only that, they pushed this false Russian narrative, just like they did for the past 4 years of the Trump election.
Agreed with one caveat, and then I promise I will let Josh speak because I know he is bursting to say something. Probably
He just wants to scream no several more times.
Just the fact that we criticize polling, and very rightly so, because I think the science of polling, if you can call it a science, is just kind of useless for the most part. I'd be careful of saying, yes, a majority of Americans thought it was Russian disinformation. I don't think there's any way you can gauge the thoughts of an entire country based on a sample of, a few hundred people, especially seeing how the polls were wrong in 2016
It is
and 2020.
unfair to say that poll shows definitively
Right.
that a majority of Americans believed it was Russian disinformation. It is probably very fair to say a large number of Americans believe that.
I think
based
that's,
on,
I think that's a
based on
fair
that
statement.
point.
Yeah.
So, on the basis of nothing other than Trump's rhetoric and what we know about his rhetoric, he will almost certainly say it was stolen.
Right.
I'm not sure that means a whole lot more than any of the other hyperbole he uses means.
Exactly.
So it wouldn't be unexpected at all for him to do that. I do think everybody wants to be the hero in their own story, and everybody thinks he's the good guy, with very, 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 very few exceptions. Everybody thinks he's the good guy. And
I am the good guy.
There is it is
Even
pretty
Joe thinks
much it is pretty much impossible to square the idea of being a good guy with the circle of barricading yourself in the White House. It's so improbable that anyone would do that. Before Trump came on the scene, the left's favorite whipping boy, at least 20th century whipping boy, was Richard Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between Nixon and JFK, there is a difference here. There was no incumbent. They were running for an open White House.
I am not a crook.
But Nixon, in hindsight,
You weren't even born then.
in hindsight, I think it's pretty clear. There's a good argument that Nixon won in 1960, but for the good of the republic, Nixon stepped back. If there was any sort of a smarmy political actor, or someone the left would call a smarmy political actor, it was Richard Nixon, and
Right.
he backed off of it.
Right.
So
In the dictionary, when it's corrupt, there's a picture of him.
yeah, and I don't buy. I don't buy that narrative. I've never bought that narrative. But if Nixon didn't make a play for it, I think it's very hard to say that Trump would do that. The far more likely thing is that Trump will. I think Trump. Actually, we can make another Coke bet if you want to bet on a
I
can
already
of
owe
Coke
a
here.
bunch of people cans of Coke.
Well, I owe you
bets that
one
I've
right
lost.
now. I owe you one right now. But I think he will. I predict he will give an exceptionally gracious speech before he leaves, turning the reins over to Biden. If he doesn't, then a whole lot of what we've said about him being really a patriot and really caring about the republic and things like that, I think it calls those things into question.
That's
if he
an
does.
excellent point.
I hope he does that.
thank you.
For the good of the country.
I think he will. If you read what interviews Trump's given about the transition from Obama to him, it looks like Obama handled that with a lot of class. And Trump is
In some
not
ways.
someone who is going in some.
Yeah, well, they were still doing the spying, but
yeah.
Oh yeah, sure,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, great point.
Yeah.
To his face.
yeah,
Great, yeah, but
To his face, he was
to
an
his
absolute
face, yeah,
gentleman.
Yeah, he was Obama's very gracious to his face.
He was
But
wiretapping him
I
behind his
don't
back,
think
but-
Trump. I don't think Trump will want anyone to be able to say, "Oh, well, the Obamas handled this with more
I think
grace
that's a
than you
really
did."
good point, Josh. I think
So,
that's really
well,
good
for
point.
whatever it's worth, and if you want to make a bet on that, we can.
I think I'm all Coke batted out.
But okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. But this is a talking point. Sort of, the media is going to want to bookend. They got a lot of stuff they need to bookend and tie up loose ends on, right? And I think the narrative that Trump was going to barricade himself in the office and never give it—that's one of them. So they're trying to tie that.
That's
up
a
right
great
now.
point, Josh. I think, and this is probably a conversation for another day because you could go on about it. I mean, cable news, CNN, MSNBC, even the New York Times and the Washington Post that have seen these huge boons during
Yeah,
the Trump
yeah.
administration are about to realize very quickly, if Trump ends up losing, that was all Trump, and that they're going to struggle now, or at least not have
I
these
think you're right about
massive
that.
ratings and readership and subscriptions.
I think
Rachel Maddow
has
to
no purpose in life.
To the extent
Yeah.
that she is sympathetic at all, is sympathetic in the minority, fighting against a tyrannical overlord
Right.
of her own imagining, of course. But can you really see Rachel Maddow playing defense for
For anyone?
Joe Biden.
for anyone other than
Yeah,
herself?
no, Rachel
yeah.
she's an attack
Joy
dog.
Reid. I
Yeah.
mean, what,
she's an attack. Rachel Maddow's an attack dog.
Yeah.
She's pretty good at it.
I think Fox News will do excellent because
Probably.
they will have a lot to criticize, probably rightfully so.
Right, and and again, all of this is predicated on a Biden victory, which is not written in stone at this point. But yeah, I think you're right. I think members of the mainstream media are having a good time right now, and in about a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, sometime out there, they're really going to start struggling for a narrative to push.
Well, and they are having a good time right now because the person they hated, they think is going to be defeated. They are having trouble looking much past that.
Right.
And any of us who've been paying attention to the news know that there is significant trouble for the Democrat Party past the presidential election. Democrats got absolutely slaughtered in down ballot races. One of the things that was
Which does bring up the question of how Joe Biden can win the presidential election. It doesn't prove anything,
right?
But it is an interesting question,
right? And I think it's a function of the craziness, the weird, unexpected political nature of Donald Trump. That he can drive. Let's see here. He is as attractive as he is repulsive to some people. So he can attract people from the red, from the blue, and repel people out of the red.
Right.
So a lot of crossover votes, which was interesting. But when you look at what happened down ballot, it was a bloodbath. And not only is this not a question of the blue wave we've heard about for so many years that just refuses to show up. Not only is it that the blue wave fizzled, but that they got slaughtered on the state level as well. So our friends over at the Daily Cost, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but our friends over at the Daily Cost, not really our friends, are fellow countrymen.
They could be our friends
if
they want to be our friends.
I guess.
You know?
Well, if they want to be
Fellow humans.
We will be friendly to them. It's
Yeah.
really up to what they want to do.
George and Joe will be friendly to them. I'll be passable. But they put up a fantastic. Can we pull the map that I sent you guys in the booth ahead of time? They had a very interesting map. This is courtesy of Stephen Wolf over at Daily Cost. But basically, this is what redistricting is. Who's going to have control of redistricting based on numbers after Election Day. Now, I think this has actually been updated since this map was created. You can see some of the states in gray. A lot of them have turned red since then. But basically, here's the point. Back in 2010, the census was was going on, and we were getting ready to figure out, all right, how are we going to apportion House seats?
Right.
We've got 435 House seats that we can distribute among the states based on population. How are we going to do that? And because of the way the Constitution sets things up, the House legislatures have control over how those seats are apportioned, how the districts are, how the districts are drawn.
Right.
If Republicans control the majority of state houses of redistricting, they're going to be able to draw very favorable lines for which will then impact the United States House elections. So here are the crazy numbers. Back in 2010, because of the way things shook out, I think thanks in large part to Biden's victory in 2008 and everybody realizing, holy smokes, we got to put the brakes on. Republicans were able to basically control redistricting at a ratio of about 5-1 against Democrats. The Democrats had hoped that maybe in 2020 they were going to be able to reduce that to a 3-1 Republican
almost cut
advantage.
it in half.
Three or 4-1. Now it's looking like 4 to possibly 5 again.
Awesome.
Combine that with what I think is going to happen in 2022 with Biden rolling back an enormous number of executive orders that really impacted jobs and the growth of the economy. A potential President Harris in there, not to be macabre,
or at least the specter of one.
The specter of one, yeah. I think this bodes very, 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 very well for Republicans in 2022, and the shine, if Biden wins, the shine is going to fade off of him very, very quickly, and they're going to begin, I think, panicking, trying to figure out, okay, how do we fix this? We control the White House, but how much good is it going to do us?
Well, I can certainly see a scenario where Biden takes the office. He will not be left enough for a lot of people, and so he will start seeing attacks from his left.
Yeah.
We saw that throughout the primaries, for instance.
And are still.
And yeah, exactly, and still. And but we also see that pushback, right, from the House saying, "Hey, don't ever use the word socialist again.
Yep.
I almost lost my seat. We're going to get slaughtered if you don't stop this defund stuff." Right? So I could easily see this sort of civil war within the Democratic Party, which would bode very well for 2022 for the House, for Republicans. So it'd be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Clinton, after I think it was just a year or two after he had taken the White House, he said the Congress and the Democrats and the left had pulled me so far left, I didn't know whether I was coming or going. That's an interesting comment, especially when you think about the composition of Congress then as opposed
Compared to
to
now.
Yeah.
He had no AOC to deal with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Biden, I don't think Biden's especially strong-willed. He's never struck me as
That's
especially
malarkey.
strong-willed. He seems far more like a technocrat, but who is strong-willed is Kamala Harris. Who are strong-willed are the members of the squad.
And
There
Bernie
are
Sanders.
and Bernie Sanders. There are a lot of people out there who are going to pull this
good
guy
one.
as far left as they can, and that does not bode well for 2022 for them. I think.
And, I mean, they'll try to pull Biden as far to the left as they can, but there's only so much they can do because Mitch McConnell, as we said last time, will be in the Senate, and there's just so little, legislation, I think, if Republicans keep their majority, that Biden will be able to get across.
That's why I'm very optimistic. No matter what happens in the next few days, I'm actually super optimistic about the next 4 years because I think you're right. They are going to pull him as far as possible. I think you're right. The Senate will stand in Biden and Harris's way and stop any insane judicial nominations.
Cabinet nominations.
Make sure that cabinet nominations are moderated. I don't think there's an enormous amount of lasting political damage they can do to the republic because of the way things are set right now.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, we get a chance to take the House back.
And you have to think the map does not look very good for the Senate, right, in 2022. It just doesn't. I'd have to look at it specifically, but it doesn't look good for Republicans. That being said, the fact that Joe Biden is going to be president makes it a lot better for Republicans because, the party in the White House never does particularly well in the midterms. So,
All right, final question, kind of on this topic before we wrap up. We're about out of time, but I'm just really curious to get your gentleman's opinion on this. Nancy Pelosi's come out under a lot of fire for the results of the House elections this year and the number of number of seats Democrats lost. And so there has been some noise about whether or not her speakership may be in jeopardy. Josh, what do you think? Is she going to be the Speaker of the House for the next 2 years?
Yeah, I think she will. I think you'll have to pull it from her cold, clutched, cloven hooves. Newt Gingrich, after a massive defeat in '98, he had the decency to step aside. I don't think there's any, and I don't mean this in a particularly personal way. I don't think there's very much decency in Nancy Pelosi. It's not who she is. Yeah, no, I think she hangs on. Who is going to have the guts to oppose her? Who has any clout at all? I mean, I can absolutely see AOC. Oh yeah, get out of here.
Sure.
I mean, she has no.
yeah.
She's not
Joe,
taken
you
seriously.
agree with that?
I agree with it for somewhat different reasons. I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I don't think she's obviously she's the worst. But I do think, that being said, she is a very, very smart
If you want more
political
commentary
operator.
like that, please hit the subscribe button.
I think she's the equivalent of what Mitch McConnell is in the Senate.
She's a
something,
smart operator, no question.
She's something approaching that in the House. I think she, this is just my
Unassailable.
hunch. I think she has dirt on a lot of House Democrats. Maybe I've just been watching too much House of
interesting
Cards.
thought.
I'm a conspiracy
But
theorist.
Yeah.
I don't think
Only a matter
there's
of time.
any way that I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's salacious dirt. I just think she probably has too much on them for enough to vote for someone else. So I think she stays Speaker.
I just can't picture anyone withstanding. I can't picture.
Tim Ryan did it, and who knows who Tim Ryan is?
Good question.
Right.
Yeah, very good question. That's a good note to end on.
All right. Tim Ryan is always good enough to end on. That's what we say around here at WJ Live. So on that note, please remember to find us on YouTube, youtube.com/WJ Live. Click that subscribe button and click that bell.
Ding.
So you get notified every time a new episode comes online. That's your new job here.
Okay. Yeah.
And subscribe to the Western Journal at westernjournal.com/join. Both of those things really help us bring you the truth that you're looking for, the news, the journalism from a Christian conservative perspective. You're not going to see that anywhere else. It's what we live for. It's what we live to bring you. So help us to do that by taking those two actions for us. We really appreciate that. I said before, it's the end of the longest week of the longest year of my life, or at least that's what it feels like. We hope that we've helped you a little bit this week in bringing some sanity to the chaos. It has certainly been our pleasure and our privilege, and we're going to do the same thing next week. We'll see you again here at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. I'm sorry, every time, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific time, right here at WJ Live. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Hi, my name is Samantha, and I'm the community manager for the Western Journal. We've really enjoyed recording WJ Live these last few weeks, and we have some exciting news.
We are now on Apple Podcasts, but we need to ask you a favor.
In order to equip even more listeners with the truth and fight against big tech,
We need to get more subscribers and reviews.
So please, go find WJ Live on Apple Podcasts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Oh, and tell them you want to see more of me on the podcast.
Thank you for helping us out, and don't forget that you can catch a new episode of WJ Live every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube and now Apple Podcasts.